Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 670. Welcome in. It's just me today. Got what I think is going to be a short episode. We'll find out. I've got a couple things on tap. We'll talk about Thursday Night Football. I want to talk about the top 6 storylines for NFL Week 5 and then answer some Patreon questions. I think it's short. I always say that, though, and it always ends up being way longer than I expect. So we'll do the best we can and see what happens. I want to start with Thursday Night Football. On Thursday Night Football, the Atlanta Falcons beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 36-30. This game was glorious. I'm not going to lie to you, man. I think my favorite game of the year so far has been that Alabama-Georgia game from college football last weekend. I think this game beat that out. This was one of the most fun viewing experiences I've had in a long time watching football. It's exactly what you want as a football fan. It was back and forth. It came down to the final play. There was drama. There were highs. There were lows. There were things that you didn't expect. There was both teams having, frankly, some negative plays that made it, the outcome even more in question. And at the end of the day, you didn't know who was going to win. And that's all I ever want watching a football game. I kind of like a shootout. I'm not, there's something to be said for defensive battle, and there certainly were some defensive plays made in this game. It wasn't all offense, but I like an old-fashioned 36-30 shootout between two good quarterbacks. That's what we got. There's a couple key moments that really stand out to me from this game. Number one is this, kind of a weird moment, but, 4th and 3 with 10 minutes left in the third quarter. Atlanta was down a touchdown. They decided to go for it on the 42-yard line, kind of at midfield. And it was kind of a statement moment in this game where Atlanta was saying, hey, we know what kind of game this is. We take it really seriously. We're trying to win. We know it's going to be back and forth. We don't want to risk giving the ball back to our opponent. They kicked a field goal on that drive. It came back to matter a lot. I just thought it was noteworthy. A lot of people, midfield, 4th down, only 10 minutes left, 10 minutes left in the third quarter. We're in the second half, but barely. Like, a lot of people punt that ball away. And Atlanta said, no, we're going for it here. We take this moment really seriously. I thought that was really interesting and kind of showed the psyche of the game. And then, obviously, on the final drive, Atlanta, there's 12 seconds left. They get a big completion over the middle, and Kirk gets everyone lined up. They spike the ball with 1 second left. It allows them time to kick a field goal to tie the game and send the game to overtime. It was massive. And this game was the game where, in my opinion, Kirk Cousins really kind of arrived. On the day, Kirk was 42 for 58 passing at 509 yards, 4 touchdown passes, and an interception. It was incredible, man. This is why you pay Kirk Cousins a massive contract like that. And I've got kind of I don't like hot takes. I kind of try to avoid them, but this may or may not be a hot take depending on who you are. To me, Kirk Cousins is in Atlanta what we thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be to the Jets. He's a veteran presence in Atlanta. Kirk Cousins is bringing everyone together, rallying the people. They're winning. They're playing better than before. Kirk is making an impact. And again, I don't know if that is, I don't know what that says about Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that means he's just been there for a while and the Achilles injury last year derailed him and we've been waiting. But I really thought Aaron Rodgers was going to come to the Jets organization. I don't mean to talk about him now, but immediately make a huge impact. They were going to win. They were going to be way more competitive. They don't look that great in New York with the Jets. It's kind of like, you got an old quarterback, and we're not seeing a lot of cohesion on offense. Well, the opposite is true in Atlanta. Kirk has come in and made a massive, massive impact. Watching, the Falcons play so well together, watching them talk about each other after the game. Drake London, their star receiver, had a huge complimentary interview talking about Kirk Cousins, how much they love him. Matthew Judon, a veteran leader in the locker room, talked about how Kirk is different from other quarterbacks. He's not a guy who hides away in, meeting rooms. He's actually in the locker room. He's available. He's around. He's part of the team's culture, and they love that. Kirk is making a huge impact in Atlanta. It's very, very clear. And I love, Michael Penix Jr. is the guy they drafted in the first round this year. We believe he's the future of the Falcons at quarterback. And there was a lot of consternation. You signed Kirk Cousins to a massive contract. You also got this other quarterback. Right now, it looks like a perfect move. The contract makes sense. They're paying Kirk a ton of money. They're winning games. He's making an impact immediately. And they got a young guy who's really talented sitting behind him, learning that someday can maybe take over the reins when Kirk's time in Atlanta is done. But right now, it's huge. Atlanta's 3-2. And there's kind of a crazy stat that I think really highlights the impact Kirk Cousins has had. It's wild. Through 5 games, Atlanta has not led or trailed by more than one score all year long. What does that mean? The translation to me is that Kirk is giving his team a shot to win basically every single game. They are in every single game. And if you watched old Atlanta Falcons teams go back to last year, Desmond Ridder, dude, it was brutal. I felt bad for Falcons fans last year with Arthur Smith calling the plays and Desmond Ridder at quarterback for a while. They ended up making that change. It was bad. And immediately Kirk is a huge upgrade. I would imagine Falcons fans are incredibly happy. 3-2 is a great outcome. You start the year against Pittsburgh. You lose a tough game by 8 points to one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in football, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And that's for a quarterback coming off of an Achilles injury with a new team. Beating Pittsburgh week 1 was a really tough ask. And then week 3, they lose by 5 to Kansas City in a game where they came up just short, but they were right in that moment. They didn't quite finish. But you look all year, Kirk has made plays. The huge comeback victory to beat Philadelphia, the huge comeback victory to beat Tampa Bay here on Thursday Night Football. It's just very clear, Kirk is making a huge impact. And watching them, it couldn't be more obvious, too. Kirk is a great dude. He's a teammate people love to work with and be around. And it's taken a couple games, but finally the offense is clicking in Atlanta. And it makes sense. Again, a new team coming back from a torn Achilles, learning a new system. Well, here in week 5 on Thursday Night Football, Drake London had 12 catches for 154 yards and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts had 7 catches for 88 yards. So these guys you drafted in the first round, finally with Kirk Cousins, look like first-round picks. They're making an impact. They're getting big catches. They look awesome. Seeing Drake London have a huge day, it's like, dude, finally, we've been waiting and waiting for Atlanta to look like the guys they drafted are going to pay off. And then on top of that, shout out to Darnell Mooney, 9 catches, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then even a guy like Cordell Hodge. Cordell Hodge is a really cool story out of Prairie View A&M. He's in his 5th year, undrafted rookie free agent. Not a rookie anymore, undrafted free agent in his 5th year in the NFL. Prairie View A&M is a small FCS program in Texas. He went there, had the game-winning touchdown in overtime. He was only playing in the game because Drake London, before had gotten injured a play previously. They take him out. He comes in, 1 catch, makes a huge play, runs for a big gain after the catch, outruns everyone for a touchdown. You're like, whoa, who is that guy? Cordell Hodge. I don't know what his future is. He's saying in the interviews, start me, I want to play. I love that attitude, by the way. Give me the ball. Let me play. Give me an opportunity is really, really cool. It's just very clear. Atlanta's figuring it out. They've gotten better every week I've watched them. I think they're going to continue to get better. And I'm really excited about the future. I think Atlanta, look, I was really high on them going into the year, feeling like they had a really easy schedule, a really talented football team. And then they kind of faltered. Week 1, they lost. Week 3, they lost at Kansas City. They're 3-2 right now. 3-2 feels like it's going to snowball and get even better and better. The team has improved every week. They're playing good defense. The offense is finally clicking. Coming back from a torn Achilles is really difficult. You saw Kirk Herbstreit, the broadcaster during Thursday Night Football, talking about this a lot. Kirk is still kind of struggling to drive off his back foot. And look, he's killing it at 500 yards passing. He's doing great. But he's still settling in, coming back from an injury. The offense is finally clicking. The timing is there. They look like really, really on target and like they're working well together. I just see a Falcons offense that's cleaning things up and getting better and better week to week. And by the end of the year, they're going to be a really different football team that people kind of have to look out for. I think they're kind of an under-the-radar, quiet Super Bowl contender that's going to potentially win their division and could do a lot more as they continue to get better as the year goes on. One thing that really stands out to me, by the way, Atlanta's kicker, Younghoe Koo, deserves a shout-out. He had a really interesting night. He had a opportunity to kick a field goal early in the game. He misses it, but there was a penalty. They get another shot. And with the second opportunity, he misses it again. Wide left both times. And you're like, ooh. That's not great. What's going on there? Then later, he had another field goal blocked. And then finally, 1 second left in regulation in the fourth quarter. They line up for a 47-yard field goal, and the Falcons get called for delay of game. So 47 yards becomes 52 yards. And you're like, well, he's had kind of a rough day, missed 2 earlier, only one that counted, but missed 2 back-to-back kicks at the same opportunity, had a kick blocked. Is he going to make this kick? I have no idea. He does. He drills it. They go to overtime. That's a massive kick, and a player who kind of had to overcome and go through some resiliency in order to get to that moment and keep fighting and keep kicking and you'll keep having confidence in yourself. And then on top of all of that, there's this moment with the Falcons. It was 4th and 15 in their own territory with a chunk of change left in the game in the fourth quarter. They had all 3 timeouts, and they could have either kicked the ball away and then tried to stop Tampa, in 3 plays, force them to punt, and you get the ball back, or you go for it on 4th and 15. They went for it on 4th and 15. They didn't get it. I really liked that decision. I was talking about it with Molly, my girlfriend, back and forth, like, should they go for it? Should they not? To me, it was very clear you go for it there. Because if you kick it away, you still got to stop them. And if you don't kick it away, you got the ball in your own territory. You got 3 plays to stop. Either way, you got to stop Tampa one time. If you don't get it or if you kick it away. I liked them. They ended up not getting it. Kirk threw an interception. Then they stopped Tampa. They got the ball back. They sent it overtime. It was interesting the way it all went down. But, I really thought that decision was very, very fascinating. In your own territory, 4th and 15 with 3 field goals, or 3 timeouts, going for it there rather than kicking it. One other thing I think that you got to talk about here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield deserves a shout out. Tampa's 3-2. He was 19 for 24, had 180 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. Hit a beautiful touchdown pass rolling to his right to Sterling Shepard. It was a dime. The team in Tampa ran for 160 yards. So Atlanta got the ball first in overtime. I really think if Tampa had gotten the ball first, they might have won that football game and gone down quickly and scored a touchdown. But it's very clear to me. I thought Baker solidified himself last year by making a playoff game and winning that playoff game. But if you have any doubts of Baker Mayfield still, they're winning again this year. So that proves to me last year wasn't a fluke. Tampa looks good. They're scoring points. They're competitive. They're awesome. And to me, you look at Baker Mayfield making $33.3 million a year on average. That's one of the best value contracts for a quarterback in the NFL. They're winning. He's competitive. It's fairly modest. With the context you're paying a guy like Dak Prescott $60 million, Baker Mayfield's contract looks incredible. And I just think it's kind of weird. For some reason, there still doesn't quite seem to be an embracing of Baker Mayfield. I don't really get it. He's awesome. I love him. He's the guy in Tampa. They love him. They rally around him. He's their undisputed leader. And to me, at a little over $30 million a year on average, that's, again, one of the best, most team-friendly, valuable quarterback contracts in football. And I don't think that's getting talked about enough either. Baker's doing a great job. And I know they came up short here on Thursday night, but Tampa's competitive. They're better than I thought they would be this year, honestly. And you really got to tip a cap to Baker Mayfield. I just like rooting for him. He's an awesome dude. This quarterback matchup was fun. It was interesting to watch Baker and Kirk Cousins talk after the game. And then watch him talk to the Falcons head coach, who they have history. They both were in LA with the Rams together. So the post-game press conference, the post-game moments afterward, the celebration, watching Atlanta celebrate, watching Baker kind of gracefully handle the loss and talk to people after the game. Raheem Morris and him had a really nice moment where they're hugging, and it just was really cool. I really thought this game was awesome. And the final note I have about Thursday Night Football, I don't know if I'm the only person to notice this, but I really feel like Amazon has become the best place to watch a football game. I don't know what it is. Like, they got something going on. I think it's higher quality cameras. I don't know if it's that or maybe the streaming quality, but literally, like, the camera quality every week is better. I feel like I can see things more clearly. Like the jerseys, for example, on Thursday night tonight, you had the Falcons with the red helmets, the black uniforms, the white. I've watched a lot of Tampa Bay Buccaneers football over the years. I've never noticed quite how detailed their helmet was. And I think part of that is because I've never watched them play with whatever the cameras they've got going on Thursday night specifically. I'd love to research more and get back to you, but I'm curious if other people have the same belief. Literally, like, the picture quality on Thursday night is better than other NFL games. I don't know what that's about, but it really does stand out. When you watch a Thursday night game, you're like, whoa, this looks different to look at. It's beautiful. It's incredible. It's really cool. And I like Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. So shout out to Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. Not a sponsor. I don't really care what they think, but it just, to me, objectively, like, that's the best place right now you could possibly watch an NFL game. Now, I want to shift gears to this weekend. It's NFL Week 5. We saw one game so far on Thursday night. To me, these are the 6 best remaining storylines from NFL Week 5. Number 1 is this: Sam Darnold against the former team, the New York Jets, that drafted him. The New York Jets was where he started his career. He was seeing ghosts. It didn't go well. He got kicked out of there, went to Carolina, went to the 49ers. Now he's in Minnesota. He's 4-0. He's winning. He's killing it in Minnesota. And in fact, let me look at the stats. I think he actually leads. He's leading the NFL in right now. He is leading the NFL in not passing yards. That is Kirk Cousins. Kind of makes sense. He's played the most games. But Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins are tied right now with 11 touchdown passes. Baker's played one more game than Sam Darnold. So Sam Darnold basically leads the NFL in passing touchdowns. That's incredible. And for him to do that in Minnesota, when he wasn't really expected to do a lot this year, they drafted J.J. McCarthy. There was a low expectation of him. It's really cool to see. And when you have the other context of, hey, Geno Smith in Seattle is doing great. Sam Darnold in Minnesota is doing great. Both guys were drafted by the Jets and didn't work out. Was it the Jets or was it the player? I tend to think now it was the player because both are succeeding in other locations. I really am curious to see how Sam Darnold does against his former team. Look, he's had opportunities to talk about getting revenge. Like they did the 49ers earlier this year. He didn't really care about that. There's no way to me he doesn't want to beat his former team, the New York Jets, the place he suffered and went through a lot. And I gotta lie, I gotta say, I'm kind of rooting for Baker Mayfield against the New York Jets. I'd like to see him do well and kind of stick it to his former team. I don't know if he'll publicly acknowledge how much this game means to him, but I would imagine it means a lot. There's another revenge game, though. The storyline number 2 I want to talk about is Andy Dalton. He played the Bengals last week. He lost by 10. He's playing his other former team this week, though, the Chicago Bears. It's not as exciting as him playing his former team that he was the franchise quarterback for a long time, but he did play for Chicago. He did play some meaningful snaps there. Andy Dalton against the Bears is an interesting kind of sub-storyline this week at NFL Week 5. A more meaningful one, though, is the Baltimore Ravens, who are 2-2, against the 1-3 Cincinnati Bengals. I'm really curious, how do the Baltimore Ravens follow up a game where they just obliterated Buffalo last week? Cincinnati is 1-3. They cannot afford to start 1-4. So it's a massive game. It's a division rivalry game. I think two teams that are really good. I think the Bengals, even if they lose, it's going to be close and intense and interesting. But how interesting would it be if Baltimore just blew out Cincinnati? And back-to-back weeks ago, they just destroyed Josh Allen. Now they've destroyed Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. It would be quite a statement for the Ravens offense and the Ravens team in general to go against Cincinnati and kind of wipe the floor with them. And then again, for the Bengals to start 1-4 would be a tragedy. Really, really bad for them. Talking about Buffalo, this week they play Houston. Both teams are 3-1. It's a big test for Buffalo. I think Houston's a legitimate, awesome team. Their only losses to the 4-0 Minnesota Vikings. I personally think Houston's a Super Bowl contender. They've got weapons everywhere. They got a great quarterback, a really good defense. So Buffalo against Houston is a monumental matchup. And it's a test for Buffalo, really, after getting blown out by Baltimore last week. What do they look like against a really good football team? You know, Nathan, my co-host on the normal episodes during the week, the earlier episodes, he's a pretty big doubter of Buffalo. And losing to the Ravens was a big statement to him. Hey, Buffalo's kind of a fraud. Well, here's another opportunity to kind of show how good they are. It's another test for Buffalo. I'm fascinated. This is an early morning game. It's the early of the slate. There's the early morning games, the afternoon games, then Sunday Night Football. This is in that first window of games. I am so excited to watch Buffalo against Houston this weekend during NFL Week 5. Then on Sunday Night Football, we got a really big test. It's Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys against the Pittsburgh Steelers. A really, really good Pittsburgh Steelers defense. What's going to happen? I honestly don't know. I'm fascinated to find out. I worry for Dak. The offensive line is suspect. I think that's maybe the best defense in football in Pittsburgh. It's at Pittsburgh on the road for Dallas. It's a really tough matchup for them. And then on Monday Night Football, we've got a really good test for the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are 2-2, playing the 4-0 Kansas City Chiefs. How good is New Orleans? We'll find out here. On the road, playing Patrick Mahomes, a pretty good defense. And Kansas City's banged up at receiver. They're missing Marquise Hollywood Brown. They're missing Rashee Rice now. How does that impact the Kansas City offense? If Kansas City without, with really only Xavier Worthy at receiver and Travis Kelce, who's no slouch, but not had a great year so far this year, with them limited at receiver, how does Kansas City play? And if they go in and play at home against New Orleans and kind of dominate, I think it'd be quite a statement about how good Kansas City actually is. But we'll find out. It's kind of a fun test. How good is New Orleans? How good is Kansas City? What does Kansas City's defense play like? How does their offense look like? What do they look like without a true receiver? A lot of questions to be answered this week on Monday Night Football. It's a fun one. New Orleans at Kansas City. I need to take a break real quick. I'm getting over a cold. My throat's been really sore, and I gotta clear my throat. I am really I've been having this itch ever since I started. I'm like, you know what? I gotta drink some water, clear my throat. I will be right back. All right, we are back. It is time to now answer questions from Patreon. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. Patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. It's $1 a month. You can donate more if you want to. Please do. But $1 a month gives you access to submit questions on Patreon. Now, question number one today is actually more of a comment, but I wanted to read it. It's from Colin. Colin says, you mentioned that Jalen Milroe growing at Alabama is a green flag as opposed to him being a red flag for having been worse in the past. I just wanted to provide Joe Burrow as an example of that as well. I agree. Look, I think it's very weird. We punish quarterbacks for how their career starts and not for how their development process goes. I thought Jalen Milroe was pretty rough at the beginning of last year, and he got better and better last year. He's been getting even better this year in Alabama's offense with a new coach, Kalen DeBoer. He's incredible. He's a superstar quarterback, in my opinion. But yet we punish him for how he started his career. We don't punish a guy like Joe Burrow, who, frankly, wasn't good enough to even start at Ohio State over Dwayne Haskins. He couldn't become a starter. Even year one at LSU, Joe Burrow wasn't great. And then in his second year at LSU, it finally clicked and he looked incredible. It's just weird. We selectively decide who we judge and don't for the development process. Jalen Hurts is another guy who I thought throughout his career has gotten better and better and better. And he seems like he's plateaued recently, but man, I don't know why we're not more complimentary, actually, of a quarterback when they start kind of their career in a rough spot and make dramatic improvements and get better. That should be an obvious sign. The guy's coachable. He's willing to learn. He's willing to self-analyze. And a guy showing improvement can only be viewed as a good thing, in my opinion. Caleb writes in and says, hey, Zach, I'm so effing tired of the Jaguars. They're the number one pick in the draft 2 years in a row. And now a couple of years later are looking at doing it again. They're 0-4 right now, by the way. Our receivers always lead the league in drops. Trevor Lawrence doesn't trust our line at all. He does a stupid effing spin going nowhere if he's in the pocket too long. And Doug Peterson is once again the same reason he got fired in Philly, holding on to Press Taylor, who I watch make the most questionable play calls week in and week out. Shad Khan, the owner, needs to fire Press Taylor, and if he doesn't, we will have the number one pick once again. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on in this write-in, and especially in Jacksonville. To me, the two offensive coordinators doing the most questionable job in the NFL right now, Press Taylor's one in Jacksonville, and Shane Waldron in Chicago is another guy who I'm really unimpressed with. The lack of motions, the way they're using people, the way they're using DJ Moore is really a problem. But you look in Jacksonville, it's a lot of the same vanilla stuff. There's not a lot of pre-snap motions. There's not a lot of ways to help the quarterback identify what coverage the defense is in. It's very weird to me. I don't understand it. And I also think, though, as much as we can point to coaching, Trevor Lawrence is heading into what's likely going to be his third head coach of his career. I don't know, man. At some point, Jacksonville has to start looking at Trevor Lawrence with a critical eye. He's missing open receivers. He doesn't seem like a great galvanizing leader in that locker room. I'm unimpressed. Has the coaching been great? No, it could be better. But some of the credit and some of the failure has to be put on the shoulders of Trevor Lawrence. And it's weird. He gets paid this massive contract. He's embraced a ton. They love him. I'm like, Why? What has he done to earn the contract? Nothing. They paid him ahead of time, assuming he was going to have a great year, kind of hedging their bets, trying to pay him before his contract got too expensive. Kind of looks like a mistake, honestly. I don't know. They're 0-4, potentially going to be 0-5 after this week. They have to win this week. I mean, if they don't, I mean, their season's over anyway, but it's like really in bad shape right now in Jacksonville. And I think the coaching, justifiably so, gets a lot of criticism. However, when are they going to start criticizing Trevor Lawrence as well in Jacksonville? I think they should be doing it now. The fact that they're not is kind of weird. Justin writes in and says, hey, Zach, if the NFL were to expand, where do you want to see teams? Ignore the viability of locations. Just pick places you'd like to see a team. If one team were to join each division, that would be 8 new teams. Here's my thoughts. In the NFC West, adding Portland, Oregon. NFC South, Birmingham, Alabama. NFC North, Bozeman, Montana. NFC East, adding Louisville, Kentucky. AFC West, adding Boise, Idaho. AFC South, adding Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. AFC North, adding Portland, Maine. And AFC East, adding Lincoln, Nebraska. Mainly, I want to see teams in underrepresented areas. Love to know your thoughts. Look, man. What's the population of St. Louis? St. Louis, Missouri is a city that, and a metro population of 2.8 million people. So about the size of Pittsburgh, roughly. St. Louis is a location that really, really loves football. It's clear. When they had the St. Louis Battlehawks, the XFL team, they supported them. They supported the Rams. They got their team taken away from them. I felt bad for them. I think St. Louis could have a team. I think San Antonio, Texas could have a team. It's one of the biggest cities in America it's in Texas. They love football. They don't really have a centrally located football team to them. There's no like big football team in San Antonio, Texas they can root for. It's a population rooting, waiting for football. The teams you mentioned, I'll tell you what, I live in Portland, Oregon. I live downtown in Portland, Oregon. This city does not deserve or need an NFL team at all. I don't think they'd support them. First of all, I think they'd probably complain about the hits or something. I'm growing increasingly jaded about Portland, Oregon. I've tried really hard to love this city, and it's slapped me in the face a lot with how it's treated me and how it's affected my life. Not a fan of Portland, and I just don't think the people here would embrace an NFL team. Honestly, I just don't think it would go over very well. It's a soccer city, and that's a weird reality of where I live. Birmingham, Alabama. That's a great location. I'd love to see a football team there. However, they've already got Auburn football and Alabama football, like University of Alabama, the Crimson Tide. They don't need a new team. They've already got a team to care about and pour their interest and energy into. There's only so much money in that state. It's already, all that money and interest, and you're buying merch or whatever, it's already going to the local college teams. I think that's enough. I think they're happy. They've already got their basically professional team. Bozeman, Montana. I've been there. Love Bozeman. It's an incredible town. They've got Montana State football. They are all the energy. That's not a very big town. Bozeman's got 50,000 people. Let's look at the actual population. Bozeman, Montana population. Bozeman, Montana's population, 56,000 people. You can't put an NFL team in a city with 56,000 people. Montana, Wyoming, none of these states should get an NFL team. But they've got their big show in town. They've got the Montana State team. That's enough. They're happy. I believe. I was nervous. I think they're the Bobcats. Montana State, MSU mascot. They are the... Oh, come on. The Bozeman, Montana State. It's the... Why doesn't it say it? The Bobcats. Okay, I'm right. I was like, I almost went to school there. I'm like, how do I not know this? Look, Bozeman's too small. Louisville, Kentucky, you bring up. I love Kentucky. I love Kentucky, West Virginia a lot. I guess I lump them together because they get the Appalachian Mountains and hollers and stuff. Louisville is not. It's in the western part of the state, western central part of the state. They got Louisville University. Again, it's a place that already has a team. Boise, Idaho's not a very big town. They've already got Boise State. They're joining the Pac-12. Great for them. Oklahoma City's got Norman, Oklahoma's not far away. They've already got a team there. Portland, Maine isn't big enough. The state in general of Maine isn't big enough for an NFL team. And Lincoln, Nebraska's already got the Cornhuskers. Like every team, every area you brought up already has a team that they care about in that location. I think that San Antonio, Texas, and St. Louis are the two places that probably could use an NFL team and pour in a lot of energy and passion and really take advantage of that. Otherwise, like, there's not a big enough city with enough population to care outside of that. I think Hawaii is interesting, but like, I've always wondered what would happen if there was a truly great team to root for in the state of Hawaii. I think they might rally around them. The population there is very loyal, but they don't really have a team worthy of that dedication. And then putting an NFL team in Hawaii, the travel would be so rough. It'd be so far. I just don't know that it's worth it. But always a team, always something I've been. Maybe you can play half the year at home, then half the year on the road, something like that. That's also brutal. I'm not really sure. Taxes would be insane in Hawaii. I just don't. I think the only two places I would add an NFL team right now are St. Louis and San Antonio, and that's kind of all I would do. Simon writes in and says, "Greetings, Zachariah. I have been a listener of yours since 2020 and a patron since 2021 or so. I've been meaning to write in a question, but every time I saw the notification pop up, I said, I'll write in a bit, and I forgot. So here I am, Zachariah, 3 years later, and finally, I've conquered the beast of my absent-mindedness. Please forgive me, Zachariah." He keeps saying it. Sure, call me Zachariah. It's not my name, but I'm happy. I kind of like please forgive me for indulging in such tiresome rambling. Now, on to the question. Who do you believe will be the Cleveland Browns of the 2020s? In the 2010s, the Cleveland Browns were the grandest losers, and while today, they're still the most marvelous pile of cow dung I've ever witnessed. It is less for their performance and more for their quarterback, whom I pray to see brutally maimed on the field each week. Anyway, let me explain my reasoning. In the 2010s, the Cleveland Browns had a 26.6% winning percentage, the worst of the decade. Today, the Carolina Panthers have a 28.2% winning percentage, the lowest in this decade. With another rough season or two ahead, Carolina risks falling even lower than the 2010 Cleveland Browns. And who are the other losingest teams in the 2020s? The Jets, the Jaguars, Houston, and the Bears. All teams with seemingly brighter futures. So by the decade's end, the Carolina Panthers should have far and away the worst winning percentage of the decade. The modern-day Cleveland Browns. A genuine fright for the spooky October season. I think a couple candidates come to mind as teams that could be the worst team of the decade, basically, in the 2020s. Carolina's a prime example, man. They had Baker Mayfield. They had Sam Darnold. Both guys left that organization and are doing great in other locations. What does that say about Carolina? They're poorly managed, and it seems like even good people don't work out there. On top of that, they had Bryce Young. They seem like they've botched that now. The future doesn't feel very bright in Carolina, but I still think it's a bit of a stretch. I think they got time to figure it out. The Browns are still the Browns of the 2020s, in my opinion, honestly. Like, they have got Deshaun Watson. They're falling apart, in my opinion. The locker room's giving up on the team. Guys want to get out of there. There's still time for the Browns to be the worst team with the worst winning percentage. Yeah, they won a little bit so far. They made a playoff game last year, but the rest of the decade could still be terrible for the Browns, and they could be still the worst team of the decade. I think the Jets are a team, though, that keep your eye on that could be terrible. Aaron Rodgers hasn't done much in New York since he's gotten there. I know he got hurt all of last year, but the impact he's had this year still hasn't been monumental and great. And he's had a year of, he knows the system, he knows what's going on. It's still not quite hitting. Like, we're seeing Kirk have much faster success than Aaron Rodgers has had in New York with the Jets. And then after Aaron Rodgers, what is the plan in New York? I don't think they have one. And they've shown, like, they cannot develop young quarterbacks. Very similar to Carolina. Sam Darnold left the Jets, doing great in Minnesota. Geno Smith left the Jets. He's doing great in Seattle. Like, guys leave the Jets and get better at the quarterback position. Mind you, the most important position in football. So probably the worst teams. When we look back 2030, from 10 years from now, look back on this decade, Jets, Browns, and Panthers look like the candidates to be the worst team of the decade. And if my money, though, honestly, still would be on the Cleveland Browns. The contract they've given to Deshaun Watson, to have Baker Mayfield win you a playoff game, be playing great, and get rid of him for Deshaun Watson, who you knew the flaws about him off the field and still gave him the biggest contract at the time in NFL history, guaranteed, by the way, fully. Is there not a bigger sign of terrible management than that? So I think the Browns are the Browns. And who's the Browns of the 2020s? Probably still the Cleveland Browns. Oh, hey, the Jaguars are trying to do it too with giving Trevor Lawrence a massive contract, and they're 0-4 right now, and they've got 2 number 1 picks in a row. Both are kind of duds. Trevor's okay. Trevon Walker's not good enough. The Jaguars are a dark horse to maybe be the worst team of the decade. But to me, the favorites, Carolina, Cleveland, and the Jets. Captain NDA writes in and says, "What's up, Zach? Not a question, but wanted to say I've been listening since 2019 when I was a sophomore in high school. And I really feel like I've grown up with you. I remember listening to the Traveling Truck podcast, and the one that hurt the most when you said you might stop the podcast and join the armed forces. My point being, seeing you go from there to where you're at now gives me hope, because as a 21-year-old guy, my life feels like a mess right now, and your journey makes me feel like it can get better. Sorry for the long ride. And don't be sorry, Captain NDA. Life is messy. I've been really, I've been struggling with a couple things recently that like have happened to me that are not my fault. Like big expenses that like came out of the blue, and it's like I don't want to deal with that. I've been having a lot of little issues, and they've been expensive to figure out. And it's thankfully I've got the money to like deal with stuff. I've been trying to save money, and it sucks to like have savings and then have to blow it on fixing a problem that is like another unforeseen expense. Like, are you kidding me? But at least I have the money. I shouldn't complain too much. A couple of years ago, I wouldn't have had the money to solve those problems, and it'd be a nightmare. And I would have had to spend the money that I don't have. I would have been further in debt with credit cards. It would have been really, really bad. So I'm actually, I shouldn't complain. But like, it's been draining my savings. Like, I keep saving money and then I have to dump it all on things that feel like not my fault. And it sucks. So I say this to tell you, I've learned that, dude, life is just problem solving. If it feels like it's one thing after another, get used to that. That's exactly what life is. It's just one problem you got to solve after another. And it used to really irritate me, and I'm trying to get better. It's being like, yeah, take a deep breath. That's life. It feels messy sometimes, and you figure it out, and you want to have peace in the midst of figuring it out and taking our time and having ups and downs and unforeseen stuff. Life is just a series of problems to solve. And my favorite book of all time, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Blank, talks about how, look, you want to just find the problems you enjoy solving and do them all the time. And that's how you do life, and that's what it is. So that's I don't know what to say to you, but you're not even asking for encouragement. I understand life feels messy sometimes. It feels that way to me still. But you just figure it out and do the best you possibly can. Dustin writes in with the final question today, final write-in saying, "Hey, Zach, this isn't exactly a question, but more of a comment. I just wanted to say that as a Cowboys fan, when you said we would go 6-11 this year, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. Well, several weeks into the year, and I'd like to apologize. I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong, and I certainly was. I think your prediction was spot on, and from now on, I'll trust you more when you make your predictions." Look, man, I don't have emotion involved in my predictions. Arizona Cardinals fans were furious at me when I predicted their team would have a tough year. I wasn't hating on the Cardinals. I'm not a hater. I try to be objective and fair. I think I was pretty right. The Cardinals are 1-3 with some ugly. They just got obliterated by the Washington Commanders 42-14. It's been ugly. I try to take emotion out of my predictions. I look at the Dallas Cowboys' future for their season this year. They're 2-2 right now, and they're heading into a tough part of their schedule. On Sunday night this week, they're playing at Pittsburgh against a really good defense with a good front seven and a good defensive line. TJ Watt is probably going to eat Dak Prescott alive. Then they play Detroit, a really good, probably the best team in the NFC. Then they got a bye week. Then they play at the 49ers, a great team. Then at Atlanta, a team that's, I think, pretty good and getting better every week. Then they play Philly, Houston, and at Washington. Dude, the Dallas Cowboys are in trouble. They've got, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next 7 games are, the next 8 weeks, including a bye week. The next 7 games are brutal for the Dallas Cowboys. They might go 1-6. I think 2-5 if they're lucky the next 5 games. They're going to have to beat really good football teams, and I don't think they're capable of that. That is why I predicted their year going bad. And look, Washington's better than I thought. Like, I predicted 6-11, assuming they were going to handle a team like Washington. And right now, Washington's got a more dynamic quarterback and probably a better defense. And they have got their former coach of the defense in Dallas. I don't know, man. Washington feels like a really dangerous matchup for the Dallas Cowboys right now. 6-11 is spot on for the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion. And maybe generous, but the context of, hey, some of the teams on their schedule are better than they thought they were going to be. So hang tough. It's going to be a rough year. Good thing you're paying Dak Prescott $60 million a year. It's horrifying. You got to find a coach. I think things are wrong in Dallas. And frankly, they're probably not going to get better until Jerry Jones, the owner, takes a step back from making football decisions. And I don't see that happening in his lifetime. So, dude, Dustin, as a Cowboy fan, I feel bad for you. Guys, that's all I have this week. I love you. I appreciate you. Enjoy football. Look, if you didn't watch Thursday Night Football, you missed a big one. I'm sure you did, but I hope you didn't miss it. Are there any good college games? I don't think there are. Like Michigan State plays at Oregon that's unranked. I don't really care. Penn State, UCLA, couldn't care less. Like I'm trying. Auburn, Georgia, like every great team in college football this week is playing an unranked opponent. Yeah, I don't see a lot of great matchups this weekend in college football. Like Miami at Cal is the big game Saturday night. Like, ooh, whoa, Miami at Cal. I don't care. So it's a rough weekend in college football, in my opinion. The NFL is a much better product week to week. Every once in a while, like, other than this Atlanta Falcons Buccaneers game on Thursday Night Football, and by the way, almost every Falcons game I've watched this year has been an absolute thriller, honestly. Other than Falcons games, I think the best game I've seen all year was a college game between Georgia and Alabama. So the best college games are incredible, but an average college game is usually way worse than an average NFL game, and that's the reality of watching football in 2024. Guys, I love you. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you next week. Me and Nathan will record Monday or Tuesday night, probably Monday night after Monday Night Football. I love you. Appreciate you. Have a great day. And bam, we are